All 26 veterans I've interviewed all have amazing stories and all are unique in their own ways. And they all contain a personal bit of advice for my generation, for future generations. I think it kind of all started when I was about 4 or 5 years old. There was a neighbor in my neighborhood who would walk by my house every day, and he was missing half of his arm. And I asked my dad, I was like, why is that man missing his arm? And my dad said, well, he lost it during World War II in the Pacific. And being a 4 or 5-year-old, I didn't really know what World War II was. And that kind of fueled my interest of history. And then ultimately, as I got older, starting in the 8th grade, I started interviewing World War II veterans because I really wanted to preserve their story for future Maine generations, but specifically for everybody around me in my community and in my state. For those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, we need to remember them. I mean, they literally gave up their lives just for me to go to school, or for you to go to Hannaford's, or just you to just walk out of your house every day and know that there's no fear of you being attacked. And it's very important to remember those who have served, because they've gone through a tremendous amount. They've gone through experiences that no man or woman who's a civilian would ever understand. And it's important just to say thanks to them, because it means a lot.
I was in the United States Navy for 23 years. A veteran means to me a person who sacrificed a lot of their time, their life, for others.
A veteran means to me someone that has served for our country and fought their hearts out and protected us.
I think a veteran is someone that's willing to sacrifice everything for our country, so that the majority of us can kind of almost take for granted the way we live and the freedoms that we have in this country, and live a pretty special lifestyle thanks to our veterans.
Yeah, my dad's in the military. To me, it's anyone that's served our country, most likely in the military. I mean, even maybe a firefighter to me could be a veteran. It just depends.
Veteran to me means somebody who has fought and served in this country to help protect our freedom and our rights as Americans.
When I was young, and when the Second World War had begun and was along in its way, there was such an intense feeling in the whole population of patriotism. It was far, far greater than it is even today. And I was in high school at the time. At the time of Pearl Harbor, I was only a freshman in high school. The day after Pearl Harbor, December 8th, when the Second World War, for the United States at least, was declared, we got to school that Monday morning, and very soon after we got to school, Portland High School, there was an assembly called, and we were all assembled at in the auditorium to be told that the president was going to make a speech to declare war, and it was just a horribly emotional moment for all of us. If you'd been there, you would never have forgotten it any more than I did. I think before the day was over on Pearl Harbor Day, there were like maybe as many as 10 of the seniors who had enlisted that day. So I tell you that only to give you a sense of how we all felt. So, of course, I was too young to take part in that, to go, and I stayed in school, and by the time I got old enough to join the Navy, And we had lived through this, what was essentially 3 years or 2.5 years or something of the Second World War. I was just in the same frame of mind of everybody else. I jumped and joined the Navy before I graduated. I was a junior, although I came back and finished my senior year after I got out of the Navy. So, as soon as I was old enough, I joined. I was off and going.
I was drafted. I was, there's a little story that goes with that. You see, my records from youth were all mixed up. And when I became an orphan, I went to, was put on a farm in Wyndham, which is only 3 miles from here. And the records I took with me stated that I was a certain age. So when I became a sophomore, I got my draft card, and then I went in to sign up for the draft. And I had 3 choices. The first choice was the Army, and the main question I asked them was, can I finish my sophomore year? You see, it was April, my birthday, and I wanted to finish my sophomore year. And they said they couldn't do that. And so I went to the Navy, which was just across the aisle. And they gave me the same answer. So the only alternative I had was to go across the hall again and walk in where the Marines were. When I landed on Iwo Jima, I was 16 years old.
Well, at the start of World War II, the country was in trouble. Japan and Germany were stronger than the United States. Japan had attacked us. So it was more of a case of protecting our own country rather than going out and salvage somebody else's country. That's why I joined.
As soon as I finished the basic training, which everybody has to go to, I learned that I'd been assigned to radio school. My class in radio school, the class that I was in, our class in its entirety was going to be sent to the amphibious fleet, which was not good news, because that was the Navy group that carried all the combatants, not all the combatants of course, but the combatants onto the island beaches. It had a very high rate of non-return, let's put it that way. And in fact my whole class did go to that force, the amphibious force. And I never saw any of them after that. I don't know what happened to them at all.
I went to Newport, Rhode Island through boot camp, and then to Boston to pick up the destroyer, and I stayed on the destroyer until the end of the war. I was a radar operator on a destroyer, and we not only ran radar, we had CIC, Combat Information Center, so we were kind of the nerve center of the ship.
I became a machine gunner on Iwo Jima. That's when I became a machine gunner. I was on Iwo Jima, which didn't take long. It took us a month. But I was in the Second World War for 2 years. And then I joined the active Marines when I got home. Then was called down to New River, and it was there that they told me that I was going to go to Parris Island again. And I questioned the officer. I said, "Sir, but I've been there." He says, "It doesn't matter. You have orders to go to Parris Island." And I said, "What will I be doing there?" He says, "You will become a drill instructor." And I says, "I don't think so." He says, you do what the Marines say. So that's how I became a drill instructor. for the Korean War. This is my platoon. I helped train, and they went to Korea. And I often think about those boys.
I had 8 battle stars. That means we were engaged in 8 major battles. And I have various theater ribbons like the Atlantic or the Pacific. We went to Europe. I got the European medal, and World War II medal, and combat medal. So I have, what, 5 or 6 medals at least.
During the war itself, the part that I saw of it was in the South Pacific and the Philippine area, and then later on in the China Sea and on the Chinese mainland. We took surrenders after the war ended. For the next 3 months, we took surrenders of Japanese forces in Korea and up and down the various Japanese armies on the China coast.
We lost so many men, and it ended up just the machine gunner and myself, which was the machine gun helper. A fellow came up to me and said, "You're acting corporal." So that was my battlefield commission as a corporal, and I know they couldn't give it to anybody else because there's nobody else in the squad.
I went into service because I thought the country was in danger, and they were taking Navy personnel at 17. When I turned 17, I joined. My brother had gone in a month before, and Art and I always did everything together, so after he left, I was dead certain I was going to go in. Would I do it all over again under those circumstances? Most certainly.
Well, yeah, of course I would. Because, and I'll tell you, there's more than one reason for that. First of all, I told you about this intense patriotism. There's no way that a person like me, or maybe you, or the other people in my class, could have avoided doing that. I left school in 1944, and came back and finished that last year. When I came back to finish, there were more than 100 people like myself back at Portland High School alone, finishing up what they left. There was nothing at all would ever have prevented me from doing what I did.
If I had the chance, I don't think I'd do it because I had a chance. But I'd do it if I had to protect America.
Well, I think the reason to remember those who served in the military is so you can keep in perspective of what it takes to keep a freedom for everyone. It's that piece of knowing that others will give, like the American way, a part of our American way is, you know, we give. We're a country of people who do give. And that part of giving, that sacrificing to serve the country in that way is what makes it important to remember those who do.
Well, they've risked their lives, and a lot of people have lost their lives, so if we don't respect that and we don't show that we care, then what they've done really doesn't mean anything.
People who have served, well, I mean, they're putting it all on the line for us. You know, a lot of kids from Westbrook have gone and served in the military and served overseas, and I think it made our community proud and our school proud. And it's not obviously just people from Westbrook, but people who are willing to sacrifice for the greater good and be part of something bigger than themselves. I think we always have to recognize people for making those sacrifices.
There are a lot of people who did a lot of things during the war that were, well, you might say that they were quite courageous, and many of them were quite courageous. Others were a matter of being able to face up to what you had to face up to without being that courageous. You're called to serve, and you serve, and you're sent somewhere, and you're scared as you can be, and you're not brave or courageous at all, perhaps, but you do it. And then
those are the fellows, many of them, that are still under the crosses all over the world. They were young, and their life was cut short. And myself think of that all the time.
A lot of people gave their lives. A lot of people came back with severe wounds and suffered the rest of their lives. We fought for one reason, to protect our country. All of us live in this beautiful country, and the servicemen certainly have contributed to the security of this country, and I think people should appreciate that.
Well, I think Wreaths across America are doing an excellent job at remembering veterans across the nation, from Maine to Virginia, from Virginia to California, and really taking the time to really honor those. Those veterans are both alive, but those who have sadly passed our way or died in duty paying the ultimate sacrifice.
when you have a country like this, you have to recognize what you have. And you have to recognize that you have it because the people around you are part of you having it too. You have to recognize that you have to recognize this, and that you have to maintain it and protect it, and you have to be loyal to it, you see. And you can't, many people, maybe even most people, don't really recognize this need in themselves until they're reminded of it. And they're reminded of it by actions like this, by remembering the people who had the same thoughts, you see. And they went through it. And you can see how they handled it. And you can thank them for how they handled it, because if they hadn't been there, the thing would have crumbled.
I think it's a tremendous tribute to the fallen to have Arlington decorated with wreaths by the thousands is beautiful. I've been to Arlington a few times myself, and I can just envision what it must look like. And I think the company here in Maine that is sponsoring that is to be congratulated and recognized as a true American company.
Can you imagine, as they travel the country, they stop at towns and put wreaths on the unknown soldiers standing in their parks. And then when they get to Arlington, the thousands of graves, they incorporate the scouts and all the folks that will help to put the wreaths on each of those white crosses. God bless them. The stars that through my window shine, I picture them as comrades that wave to me at night. I know you may stare at me and think I've lost my mind, but God has placed them high above to keep us all in line. Each star has got a dog tag that glistens ever bright, and someday we will join them, those who fought for right.